Okay, so this is a video lecture for those of you who were unable to attend the lecture in the tricycle last Friday. We covered the principles of dissertation writing, really looking at the module, or modules, should I say, because some of you were doing PA 3902, which is the 20 credit version of the dissertation. But we were looking at the modules and what's expected of you in terms of assessment, um, in terms of the work that's going to be required of you, both in and outside of the classroom or the lecture theatre, and also what you can expect from us in terms of teaching, in terms of supervision, and in terms of resources and things like that are available to you. Um, the lecture itself last week was actually quite interactive. We put people into groups to discuss things. Um, Obviously, we can't do that today on this video version, but I'll cover the principal points that came up. So hopefully, if you watch this video and follow it through, you'll be in the same position as those people who attended the lecture on Friday. Any outstanding queries you might have, please direct them to a member of the dissertation team, either by email or next Friday at the second lecture in the series. Okay, so understanding the task ahead. Looking first at the assessment components, there are two for this module. There is the first coursework, CW1, which is a project proposal and presentation. This is 2,000 words for those of you doing PA 3904, which is the 40 credit dissertation, and 1,000 words for those of you doing PA 3902. And it accounts for 20% of the overall grade. I'll talk a bit more later about what's expected in that proposal. But essentially, it's a plan. It's something that outlines what you want to write about, how you're going to go about researching it, and demonstrating to us that you're on the right track. And it's an opportunity, as well as being an assessment, it's an opportunity for us to see how you're getting on, to give you advice if we think you're going the wrong way, or to help you refine it if necessary. And the second coursework component, obviously, is the dissertation itself. This is your final manuscript that you've written, which for those of you doing the 40 credit version is 10,000 words, and those of you doing the 20 credit version is 5,000 words. So pretty much those of you doing the 20 credit module, everything is half that of the 40 credit module. So your project proposal is 1,000 instead of 2,000. Your dissertation is 5,000 instead of 10,000. You get 20 credits for it instead of 40 credits. You do it over one semester as opposed to 2 semesters. Okay. In the first semester, then, what we'll really be doing is looking at the field or the subject discipline surrounding the topic you've chosen to write about. This is obviously you have quite a lot of choice in terms of determining what you want to write about. Providing it's associated with music to some degree, then it's fair game really. But this should really be something that is going to interest you, and is going to you're going to feel motivated to write about. And we'll be putting you into seminars. After the first 4 weeks of lectures, we put you into seminars where you will discuss your ideas with people who are writing around a similar topic to you. So, for example, if you chose to write about the use of music in therapy for people suffering from dementia, then you would be put into the music therapy seminar group, and the other people in that group would be writing around similar topics around using music in a therapy setting. It might not be exactly the same topic as you, but there will be enough common ground between your chosen topics that you'll be able to discuss things, share literature, share ideas, and the seminar leader will help you all in developing your research expertise around that topic. And whereas if you chose, for example, to write about groove templates in drum machines, you would probably be put into the music technology group. And not everybody there would be writing about drum machines, but everybody in that group would be writing about music technology. And so there would be some common literature there that we would introduce you to, and some common theoretical issues and concepts that you would need to know. And so that would allow you to look at your subject in a more focused way. We also cover conventions of scholarly writing and citation. Scholarly writing is another way of saying academic writing. And as you'll know by now, there are requirements in terms of how you write for an academic piece of work. It's not the same style of writing, for example, as that of a blog or a magazine article. It's different. It's different in tone, and there are also certain requirements, such as citing or quoting other sources. You have to make sure that you attribute that quote to the right person using a standardized procedure. There are resources to help you with this on the VLE and on the University of East London library resources, but I'll come to that later. And obviously we'll be helping you with this in the seminars, but it's really important that you get to grips with the conventions of scholarly writing and citation as soon as possible. It can seem irrelevant at times. If it can seem like a sort of tedious requirement that has no relation to what you want to write about or to being a musician, but hopefully you will see the benefit of it as you start to do research. We'll look around the theories and methods comprising the area of study. I've sort of talked about the theory to some extent anyway, in terms of around your chosen topic. There might be theoretical ideas that are important to investigating that topic. Methods is to do with how you go about researching something, and these will depend on the area that you pick. For example, if you're looking at the history of popular music to some extent, and you'll be looking at magazine articles or footage perhaps from the past, then you'd be using what's called an archival methodology. You'd be using archives of some kind to find sources from history. Whereas if you were looking at how people felt about a particular type of music, and you might want to use interviews, so then you'd be using an interview-based methodology. But different topics and different research areas require different methods. You need to use a method that's appropriate to that area of study, and we'll be helping you match the appropriate method with the topic you want to look at. You'll also be looking at identifying and selecting a suitable object of inquiry. This is because sometimes when students come to write a dissertation, particularly if they haven't done something like this before, it's quite difficult to understand what is manageable, what's within the time available, what might be too big a topic to address in a piece of writing this long, or similarly what might be too small a topic. So it might be that you want to look at something and we say, actually, I think that's too broad. You're not going to get that done in the time, and we would advise you to narrow your topic to make it something more manageable. Or you might choose something that could be addressed in a paragraph or in 1,000 words, in which case we would say there's not really enough there to write about. You need to find something bigger. But we'll help you do that, and to find out where your topic sits in the bigger scheme of music research, and then accordingly where to look for resources and sources and things like that. You'll also learn to distinguish between primary and secondary resources. We'll come to this in due course, but there is that's a key distinction in any research, really, is differentiating between what is a primary source and what is a secondary resource, and how you approach them and how you apply them in your writing. So we'll be looking at that. We'll also be looking at the framework and structure of dissertation writing. You may be finding the prospect of writing 10,000 words to be very daunting, and it is a big piece of work, but a lot bigger than the other kind of essays that you've been writing so far in the course. Um, but um, it structuring it appropriately can make that task so much easier. And this is through, for example, using subheadings and chapters and arranging your writing into sections that make sense and help you create a logical flow for your piece of writing. And we'll be helping you to organize your ideas and structure your ideas in a way that makes it easy to write about them. And also on the VLE, there are examples of other people's dissertations from previous years. The ones that are on the VLE are examples of good dissertations. So it would be good for you to look at those and just to get an idea of how they've structured their writing. Excuse me. We'll also be looking at dialogic scrutiny of key texts. Dialogic means between differing perspectives. So you will be reading key text, and you might find that what somebody's saying in one key text differs from what somebody's saying in another key text. And it's your role in writing a dissertation to identify the differences there and to talk about them. So almost you are in the role of negotiating that dialogue between two sources that may not actually refer to each other necessarily, but are talking about the same thing in different ways. So by comparing and contrasting what they're saying, you can actually scrutinize them in a dialogic way. We'll help you to formulate an agreed project. So as I said, we want to make sure, particularly through the proposal, that you're on the right track. But prior to that, in the seminar groups, which will involve presentations by you, which will be maybe informal. It might just be somebody standing up and telling the rest of the class what they've done, what they want to write about. But through these, through that process in the seminars, you will get a pretty good idea of what is appropriate and what isn't, what is manageable and what isn't, and it will help you to formalise a project that you and your seminar leader, who will also be your dissertation supervisor, or is likely to be your dissertation supervisor. It might be that for some of you, you are given to another supervisor. You know, you will discuss that with your seminar leader, and they may say, well, actually, I think this person would be a better supervisor for you. But generally speaking, you'll be supervised by your seminar leader, and you will agree with them what an appropriate project is. So you won't be left in the lurch to kind of work all this out on your own. You'll be supported in making those decisions, and that'll be good for everyone. And then you'll work towards coursework 1, which is your proposal. And you can create drafts and revisions of your proposals, which will allow you to get feedback not only from your seminar leader, but also from your peers. Helping each other on this module is a key strategy for success. It's what we call collegial support, which is, relates to what should be happening in a college, which is supporting people by giving them positive feedback, but also honest feedback. It's not going to be helpful to somebody in your class if you constantly tell them their ideas are good if you don't think they are. It's going to be more helpful to them if you say, I think that idea could be better if you did such and such, or I'm concerned about you doing that. I'm not sure that's the best way of looking at something. But the crucial thing is be honest, be constructive, and be polite in giving feedback, and give as you would expect to receive, and in doing so, you'll really help each other and motivate each other to do as best as you can. Okay, so let's look a bit more closely now at the project proposal. project proposal is obviously it's an assessment component that accounts for 20% of your dissertation, so it's important in that respect alone. But it's also a plan of your dissertation that will, to some extent, be a starting point that will provide a framework within which you will then write your dissertation. We will expect in this project proposal that you outline the topic you want to write about, how you're going to go about researching it and writing it, give a summary of some of the reading that you have done around that topic to give us an idea that you know what you're talking about or that you are on the right track, and also to identify any challenges or limitations around that topic. And those subheadings that you'll have in the proposal will also help you when you write your dissertation at the end, because you'll be able to use those subheadings and sort of fill in the gaps. So it will almost provide a kind of skeleton that will help you to get going on actually writing the final document as you go on. You're not going to be left in the dark again to work out those subheadings. We actually have a template for a poster, which you will be showing to other people in class, which will then, the sections of the poster will then be the subheadings for the plan, and you can write that. And you don't have to follow this plan, but it's a good framework, and if you are feeling a bit lost and don't know what subheadings to use, you can use that to help you write your proposal. So why are you writing it? Well, you're writing it to meet the requirements of the module, but you're also writing it to help you formulate your ideas, structure your dissertation, and start ordering your thoughts in a logical way. And that's what we're assessing here. We're looking to see that you are establishing a coherent investigation, that you are going about it in the right way, that you have, that at this point in time, which for most of you will be the end of, just before Christmas, you'll be handing this in if you're on the 40 credit module. It's earlier, it's in the beginning of November for those of you on the 20 credit module, but at that point, the kind of midway point in your modules, we will want to know that you're on the right track. So that's what we're looking for, that you've done some reading that is appropriate to your topic, that you've ordered your subject into a way that is going to make for a logical, lucid, cogent dissertation, and that we think you're going to finish on time. And so we need to know that the topic you've chosen is a manageable one. I mentioned just then that we want to have an indication of some of the stuff you've been reading. An essential part of all dissertations, and this is actually, I say essential because it's both something we would expect a long piece of writing to have. It's also a specified requirement by the University of East London for dissertation modules that they contain what's called a literature review. A literature review, broadly speaking, is a part of your dissertation where you talk about what you've read and what other people have said about your topic, and you discuss what they've said in relation to each other. So again, you're comparing and contrasting what people have said, generally creating the research backdrop to what you're writing about. So you're creating a thorough context against which you're going to investigate the subject. So if you're going to interview people about their feelings about heavy metal and violence, for example, we would expect you in the literature review section of your dissertation to talk about literature that other people, so things that other people have written about heavy metal and violence, and that might include literature that just talks about heavy metal and the content of the lyrics. It might be literature that just talks about violence and music, so not specifically to do with heavy metal. But these things will broadly relate to each other, and it's your responsibility to kind of join the dots, really, to create It's again that word dialogic, to create a kind of dialogic analysis of the literature that's there. Again, if we ask, excuse me. Again, so this question, second question, why are you writing it? Well, as I said, it's a requirement, but it's also in doing this, in writing about what other people have said, that's how you start to develop your own ideas and to verbalize it. Verbalizing it meaning to put your ideas into words. So you're not keeping them in your head. You're not, because often you think about things in your head and they sound really good, and they, it can feel that something makes perfect sense when it's in your head, and when you actually start putting it into words, either spoken word or written word, you start to see holes in it. So writing about what other people have said, and sort of drawing comparisons between their arguments and the arguments of others, helps you to sort of verbalize the research you're doing, and so you start to refine your own understanding and get better at writing about it and talking about it. And so it's really impossible to write a sophisticated dissertation without doing this, without engaging with other people's ideas. So it's an essential part, not only in meeting the requirements, but also in making sure your dissertation is going to be good. So the second coursework obviously is the dissertation itself, your final draft. A dissertation is an essay, but it's also supposed to be slightly more thorough than your typical essay, in that it has in that it meets these requirements, such as having a literature review. It should also present an original idea to some extent. It should have some sort of unique perspective on the topic you're looking at. This isn't to say that you have to make some brand new discovery or have some sort of eureka moment where you're saying something that's going to change the world, but it should have a unique angle on your topic. And to some extent that will happen inevitably if you go and read books and choose your own sources, because you could have, for example, two people writing a dissertation about violence and heavy metal, and if they both went off to the library, they would find different books, different resources, and they would be thinking about it in different ways, and what they came out with at the end would be a unique piece of work. They wouldn't be the same because it'd be two very different people and two very different perspectives. But that's what we want to see. We want to see your unique perspective on your topic. That isn't to say we want to just have your opinion about it, because it's not. This isn't what we call an opinion piece. We're not asking you to just tell us what you think about something. I think heavy metal causes violence. What we want to see instead is you develop an argument that, using other sources, that uses reason and logic and empirical evidence to support the claim. So you're writing that again to develop your expertise in a topic area, and I think it's fair to say that by the time you finish this dissertation, you will probably know more about the topic you're writing about than the vast majority of other people in the world, and that's something to be very proud of. You are going to be spending, if you're doing the 40 credit module, then you will be spending 400 hours of your life working on this dissertation, which is a lot of time, and you will develop an expertise in something and a thorough level of knowledge about something that will help you in the future. It might be directly, it might feed into what you do professionally, or it might just help you in terms of giving you a richer understanding of something that you're interested in or passionate about. So this comes back to what I said again at the beginning, actually, that you should really choose a topic that you are motivated to read about, to research, and to write about. It's a fatal mistake, I think, that some students often make, to pick a topic that they think is going to be easy to write about when actually they have no interest in it. And it actually ends up becoming very, very difficult. It's not easy at all, because you will have no motivation to write about something that you don't care about. It will be a waste of time because it won't help you in your future life, and you'll be shooting yourselves in the foot. So pick something you're passionate about, choose something that is going to help you in the future, and you'll be motivated to embrace the challenge, and you will succeed. If you are thinking of going to work in the music industry, for example, you might want to write a dissertation about the music industry to some extent. And then when you go and look for jobs, and they say, um, what particular areas of the music industry are you interested in, you will very legitimately and honestly be able to say, well, I'm very interested in, for example, intellectual property and streaming, and actually I know a lot about it because I've done this dissertation, and you will be able to demonstrate that you have a very thorough knowledge of the subject. So this isn't just a piece of writing to fulfil the requirements of a degree. It's evidence of your expertise in an area. So treat it as that, and write it, and take that to heart. Again, we're assessing here that you are able to write a logical, coherent piece of writing. We're also assessing what we call graduateness. We mentioned this in the induction lectures for the third years, or certainly Mike Dines and I did for the BMA students. Graduateness is a word that means the qualities that we expect of a graduate, somebody leaving university. And these include things like being able to manage a project on their own with minimal help, to take ownership of your own learning, to think critically about a subject, and all these kind of things. These are all the qualities that employers always say they value the most. They're also qualities that are essential if you're going to be self-employed or be an entrepreneur of some kind. So they're vital skills. So it's an opportunity for you to develop those skills, and that's what we're going to be assessing. It's looking for evidence in your dissertation that you are able to manage your own learning and think critically. And the learning outcomes from the module in the module guide will set that out very clearly. And it's worth using those learning outcomes almost as a checklist for you as you go through this module, to gauge whether you're meeting the requirements or not. And it can help you to stay on track. So, okay, am I thinking critically about this? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Use those learning outcomes as a guide for your learning, and know that that's what we're going to be looking at when we assess your work. We've covered dialogic learning already, but I think this first bullet point is very valuable here. We're looking for validity and not force, the soundest argument and not the loudest. So we're not looking for the kind of pub argument of somebody saying, I'm right and you're wrong, and I think this because I just do, and Oasis are rubbish, and that's it. No matter how loudly you shout your opinion, obviously it's going to be metaphorically loud if you're writing it down, but you'll all know what I mean when you say, you read a piece of writing that is ranty or shouty. It's when the person writing it seems like they're kind of aggressively making their point. And that's, no matter how loudly you say it, if the argument isn't robust or valid, you won't do well in a dissertation. We're looking for a valid argument, an argument that is supported by examples and evidence. So if you make a claim, the first thing the person marking your dissertation is going to look for is evidence of that claim. If you said Oasis are one of the most influential bands ever, then the person marking your dissertation would say, where's the evidence of that? How do you know? And so it's your responsibility to make sure that if you make a claim like that, you give evidence, and that evidence could be statistical evidence that you found through publicly available statistics that show, for example, well, I don't know in relation to that particular topic, but you would find statistics to support a claim. You might be supported statistically. It might be supported by what another researcher has written, in which case you would cite them. So that's using other sources to support your argument. Um, or it may be that you have primary evidence to support it. So you go out and you gather your own data or information that supports that claim, but you can't make unsupported statements. That won't cut it in a dissertation. Nor can you just say opinions as facts. They're very different things. All of these distinctions will become more and more clear to you as you move on through the module. And I understand that for you now, hearing these ideas might be quite daunting because you haven't necessarily thought in this way before or written in this way before to this extent. But as I said, we will support you in the seminars and in the lectures to develop this kind of understanding. Do please make sure you come to all the lectures and the seminars, because if you don't, you risk not developing this ability to distinguish between evidence and opinion and things like that, and then it will just be a big problem for you the whole way through the module, and you'll be starting with a massive disadvantage. So this early phase of the dissertation module with the lectures and the seminars is really crucial. Okay, so moving on now to the idea of academic integrity. This is a concept that basically relates to being true to the expectations of the academic community. And perhaps the most prominent aspect of that is that you don't pass somebody else's ideas off as your own. And if you do pass somebody's ideas off as your own, that is what we call plagiarism. Plagiarism is the kind of worst sin imaginable in the academic context, and we take it very seriously, and the university take it very seriously. And if you do it, you risk getting 0 for your dissertation, and so it's very important that you're not tempted to pass anybody else's ideas off as your own. But in the majority of cases, it's not that people intentionally pass other people's ideas off as their own. It's often that they don't understand how to cite or quote sources correctly and do it by accident. Unfortunately, that's just as serious. So it's really important that you understand how to cite and quote sources correctly. We have very powerful software called Turnitin. You will all know Turnitin now because you'll have submitted work through it before. But this means that if you include even a sentence of your essay that has been part of somebody else's essay or that you've copied off the internet, this software will show that you've done that, and they'll show us where you got it. As a famous example, when I was teaching somewhere else, somebody copied an essay of their friend who had been at a university thousands of miles away a couple of years before. She borrowed her essay off a friend, which was the same topic, copied a paragraph and submitted it. And obviously this was flagged up as plagiarism, and when we went to spoke to the student, we were able to say, we know that you have copied a paragraph of an essay that was submitted to a university in Africa 2 years ago. That's how powerful the software is, so you won't get away with it. We know if you've submitted something that's plagiarized, so please don't do that. If you copy a paragraph from somebody else's work and include it as a quote to support an argument or something, and you have an appropriate citation after it, so you have the brackets, the name of the author, the date it was written, and the pages that it came from, then you're fine. That's fine. That's not plagiarism. That's quotation, and we expect you do that. But it's vitally important that you appropriately acknowledge the sources that you use. Again, please go to the University of East London resources around this topic to help you. There are some links coming up in the slides that follow. Yes, so I think this is a succinct way of putting it. It's respecting your own ideas and words, but it's also respecting other people's ideas and words, i.e. not ripping other people off. The key to doing that is referencing. At the Institute, we use the Harvard referencing system, which is one of the most common referencing systems. There are others, but Harvard it can take a while to get used to, but it's one of the easier forms of referencing, the more straightforward, should I say. And getting to grips with this early, it's like other things. It's like riding a bike. You will develop an ability to do it, and then you'll be able to do it consistently. But make sure you put the time in to learn how to do it. Again, as I mentioned, the other lecture was much more interactive than this. But the following list of sources, which of these would you reference? Well, the answer is all of them. Everything on this list here needs to be cited. If you refer to it in your dissertation, or if you use an idea that features in any of these, you need to cite it appropriately. And the Harvard referencing system has a different way of citing all of these things. The guidelines are all available through the resources on the VLE and on the University of East London website. But make sure you have a checklist like this at the end. Go through your dissertation. If you have a journal article and you've used a part of it, you need to reference it. If you refer to a film in your dissertation, you need to reference it. Somebody's song on a CD, you need to reference it, etc., etc. You get the idea, but make sure that everything you use that is somebody else's work, you reference it appropriately. I think we've covered that. I'll pass that over. Yeah, so this is the link that will take you through to the UEL Harvard guidelines. This PowerPoint presentation is available on the VLE, so you can open the PowerPoint and follow the hyperlink through, and it will take you through to the page with the referencing guidelines there. Yeah, and this is really the point of referencing. It basically means that if you use another source and you quote them in your dissertation, and the person reading it decides that they want to know more about that, then they could find the reference at the bottom. They'd see the reference in the text to the name of the author. They'd go to the bottom of your essay. They'd see in the bibliography that the author was listed there. They could then go to the library and they could read that book if they want to. So your piece of writing, your dissertation, is contributing to other people's journey of discovery. So they can use your dissertation to learn about something, and then if they want to find out more about something that you refer to in the dissertation, they can use your dissertation as to help them find that source. So that's how it works. Always make sure you thoroughly check your work at the end to make sure you've done all of this. And again, there's a hyperlink here to the plagiarism policy that UEL have, and I think you'll get a very clear idea from that how seriously they take it, what constitutes plagiarism and what doesn't, and how you can go about avoiding it. So this is an essential thing to look at. Okay, so that's the end of the lecture. The next week's lecture will be at 10 a.m. in the Tricycle Theatre. what you can be doing this week, working up to next week's lecture. We discussed a bit with the students on Friday about starting to think about their idea, starting to think about a topic that they're interested in. Again, you may have an idea already about what you want to write about, but make sure it's something that is going to motivate you. Think now what's going to help you in the future, what is going to be important to you to know a lot about, because that's what you're going to do with this topic. So start thinking about that. Start looking at start following these links through and reading about plagiarism, reading about referencing conventions, and just explore the other resources on the VLE. There are examples of other students' dissertations, as I say. These will give you a good idea. These were selected because they are examples of good practice. They are good dissertations. So have a look at those. Look at how the students have structured them, how they've used subheadings, how they've used chapters. Look at the literature review. Get an idea of what a literature review is. You'll be able to understand from looking at these dissertations what that is. So start looking at those and start following these links, and that should put you in good stead to go into the second week of the dissertation module next week. Those of you doing PA 3902, as I said, some of the information in this PowerPoint is slightly different because it's the majority of the students are doing the 40 credit module. The module guides for both modules are now on the VLE, which have the assessment deadlines, the required word counts, and the semester structures there. So I'd encourage you also to look at that, and that will help you get an idea of what's ahead in the coming semester and coming year.